You might think the Labour Party would defend people on benefits, that it would protect the welfare state, that it would resist conservative attacks on the poorest in society. You'd be wrong, because back in 2013, Labour did something many people have forgotten or never knew about in the first place. Politicians from that party sided with the Conservative-led coalition government to retroactively legalise unlawful sanctions against benefit claimants. They helped the Tories deny compensation to hundreds of thousands of people who had been wrongly punished. They buried justice under bureaucracy, spin, and political convenience. This betrayal is important to remember now, not only because it happened, but because it's happening again. Today's Labour leadership under Keir Starmer is showing a similar willingness to betray us over welfare, this time with its own plan to overhaul the personal independence payment system in a way that could strip support from some of the most vulnerable people in the UK. I'm Mike Siviour of Vox Political, and I want to tell you why Labour's current betrayal is just part of a pattern of behaviour that is part of the party's character now. Watch to the end, and then I'll want to know what you think. So let's go back. Let's examine exactly what happened in 2013, because if you understand that, you'll understand why Labour can't be trusted to safeguard the welfare system now. Let's start by asking, what was Workfare? The story begins with the so-called Workfare programs, officially known as mandatory work activity or other back-to-work schemes. These were policies introduced by the coalition government after 2010 under then Work and Pension Secretary Ian Duncan Smith. The idea was simple. Unemployed people claiming job seekers allowance could be forced to work for private companies or charities for no pay or lose their benefits. The government claimed this would help them get back into work. In reality, it was a way of exploiting free labour while punishing the poor. Take the case of Kate Riley, a geology graduate who had been volunteering at the museum to gain experience in her chosen field. The DWP pulled her off that placement and forced her to work unpaid in Poundland, a company that could afford to pay its own staff. Riley refused and was sanctioned, meaning her benefit claimants were stopped. She took the government to court. The court ruling was a legal victory for claimants. In February 2013, after an initial loss, the Court of Appeal ruled in Kate Riley's favour. 3 senior judges declared that the regulations underpinning the Workfare scheme were unlawful. The government had overstepped its legal authority. The DWP had imposed sanctions without the legal framework to back them up. And the ruling meant that hundreds of thousands of claimants, potentially up to 228,000 people, had been illegally sanctioned. They were entitled to have that money paid back. But instead of accepting the court's decision, the government chose a darker path. The cover-up. Retrospective legislation. Rather than pay what was owed, the DWP rushed through emergency legislation, the Job Seekers (Back to Work Schemes) Bill. This bill did something unprecedented and dangerous. It changed the law retrospectively. In other words, it rewrote the law after the fact so that what had previously been unlawful suddenly wasn't. Imagine if someone stole your wages, got taken to court, lost, and then changed the law to say they were allowed to do it all along. That's what the government did. And Labour, the party of workers, the party of social justice, Labour went right along with it. Labour's role, a shocking collusion. At the time, Labour's front bench was led on this issue by Byrne and Stephen Timms. Instead of standing up for the unlawfully sanctioned claimants, they negotiated a deal with the Tories. They said they wouldn't oppose the retrospective bill in exchange for 2 concessions. One was a vague promise of an independent review, and the other was protection of existing grounds for appeal. But both of these were already in place or ultimately meaningless. The truth is, Labour chose not to fight. Byrne later tried to justify it by saying he didn't want to see £130 million cut from the benefit budget to pay the refunds, as if claimants recovering money owed to them by law would somehow hurt the system. In the Commons, the betrayal was laid bare when the Minister, Mark Hoban, thanked Labour for their constructive approach. He singled out Byrne and Timms for enabling the bill's swift passage. And that's what happened. The law was changed. The claimants got nothing. And the DWP's illegal actions were quietly buried. Why this was so dangerous? This was more than a welfare policy issue. This was a constitutional crisis. As Debbie Abrahams, one of the few Labour MPs who voted against the bill, put it, this bill is the result of an abuse of power and incompetence, mixed with an ideological drive to run down our welfare state. It undermines the judiciary and the rule of law. Let's be clear, retrospective legislation to cover up government wrongdoing is the stuff of authoritarian regimes. It tells the public, if we break the law, we'll just change it. And Labour let that happen. The MPs who defied it. Only 57 MPs voted against the bill, out of hundreds. Among them were names that have since become symbols of resistance to the Starmerite drift. Jeremy Corbyn, John McDonnell, Dennis Skinner, Debbie Abrahams, Graham Morris. But many Labour MPs abstained. Many voted with the Tories. And many never answered for their decision. Even more outrageously, some Labour MPs gave speeches condemning the bill only to abstain anyway. That is political cowardice at its worst. A pattern is happening again. Now fast forward to today. The current Labour leadership under Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves has proposed cruel personal independence payment reforms that would deny vital disability benefits to people with mental health conditions, replace cash payments with support services in a throwback to the worst days of means testing and humiliation, tighten eligibility criteria in a way designed to cut costs, not protect lives. It's a repeat of the 2013 betrayal, but this time with a Labour government proposing the changes. Faced with accusations of injustice, Labour offers excuses. Faced with accusations of cruelty, it offers triangulation. And faced with the harm it will do to vulnerable people, it looks away. Why this matters now? The 2013 Workfare betrayal set a dangerous precedent, legally, politically, and morally. Legally, it showed that Parliament can be used to override the courts and crush individual rights. Politically, it showed that Labour can choose side with the Tories when it suits that party's own purposes. And morally, it showed a willingness to sacrifice the poor for political capital. And today's leadership is no different. Behind the slogans and polished statements lies the same willingness to engage the machinery of cruelty. They will tell you they're pragmatic, that they're making the hard choices, that this is the right thing to do. But if governing means siding with the powerful against the powerless, who are they governing for? A few final thoughts. Labour can't be trusted on benefits or anything else. In 2013, Labour helped the government of the day rewrite history and rob claimants of justice. Today, they're showing every sign of doing it again by hammering disabled people with their so-called PIP reforms. This isn't just a bad decision, it's a pattern. A party that refuses to challenge cruelty is not a party of opposition. A party that sacrifices the vulnerable is not a party of government. And a party that betrays the poor once will happily do it many times over. Remember 2013 because it's happening again. I've been Mike Sivia, and if this rings a bell with you, please like and subscribe and I really want to hear your comments on this. Thanks for your time, and you can see me in the next one.